something like this, your mind is always wandering. And what is the practice of meditation? Bringing the mind back, always coming back like this. It's a practice of getting back and not being mad at yourself because your mind went somewhere else, because that is your mind, right? I mean, it's always going to do that. You have to get practice coming back, and also equanimity and harmony with yourself, to forgive yourself the fact that your mind is always going somewhere else, right?
Right. Now, I hear, let's jump into the Upgrade Labs.
Upgrade Labs, yeah.
Yeah, your current venture.
Yeah.
But I like what you said about how did you get here in terms of the relation between meditation and poker.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about it.
Well, how I started with Upgrade, after I invested with our Dave in his company, I went to this thing called 40 Years of Zen, which is a week-long intensive neurofeedback program. And one of the things that I like to do with any technology that I try out is find some way to measure, does it work or not? And so I thought, how I'm going to figure out if this intensive neurofeedback thing works to improve my brain. Oh, well, I know how well I play poker before. Let me go to do the meditation and see how well I play poker afterwards. Well, it turns out that after I did this program, I didn't lose a hand of poker for 2 months. And all of the people that I was playing poker with said to me, I don't know what happened, but you are a way better poker player. And frankly, what made me a better poker player was getting more equanimity with myself and more calmness in my mind, so that my monkey mind, my animal brain that wanted to react to hands emotionally, was more in control, and my prefrontal cortex was more able to make a decision in front of my animal brain, which is exactly what meditation does, and everything like that, is to give your brain the training to be able to pause and react differently to a situation than your animal brain may initially want you to do. And I found a result of that in poker, because I'm a better poker player when I react less emotionally, when I'm less reactive.
Of course. Now, Upgrade Labs tell you in a way that you can live up to 200 years.
Yeah.
I mean, why that obsession with longevity? I mean, it's how important for you, in your case, because you invested in this company, is longevity.
I did, yeah. Well, when people talk about longevity, and a lot of people, I don't understand. I don't know why people are focused on longevity just as terms of a number. For me, it's not at all about the number. It's more about vitality. And can you live in a vital way for a longer period of time? Would I want to be alive for 200 years if I could live like I was in my 30s for 200 years? Yes. Would I want to live to 200 years if I am in a wheelchair, in a breather, and have all of these diseases and cancer for the last 100 years of my life? No, I definitely would not want to live that way. So for me, the issue is more around how do you get to live a more vital life and prevent a lot of the decay that comes with old age, as opposed to necessarily living long just for a reason. It's more about vitality. It's like, how do you live a more vital life? And I had seen in my own life, before I came to Upgrade Labs, some signs that my vitality was less than it could be. My testosterone levels were down into the 400s, and when I was 30, they were 800s. I had bouts of anxiety and depression. And, since I've done some of these things, I've eliminated almost all of that. So I'm able to be present and available to my children in a more active and vital way than I was 2 years ago. And for me, that's really what longevity is about, is how do you help people live a more engaged, active, alive life as opposed to just constantly degrading and then getting weak and falling apart and then just sitting in a chair and watching TV until you die.
Now, longevity has a moral connotation, correct?
Yep.
Because you can live 200 years, but you can be a jerk for 200 years.
Sure.
So how do you see that part, that balance between the ethical or moral connotation of, that long life, and where do we get that? How do you see that in this process?
Well, one of the things that I've found, I don't know if you found this in your life, but, that phase, and different philosophers have talked about it, and the unfortunate deal in life is that when you're younger, you might have a lot of vitality and energy and strength, but you don't have any wisdom. You're not very smart, really.
Right.
You might have intelligence about something, but wisdom that comes from the long life. So we end up getting wisdom. For me, it was starting about when I turned 50. And I'm sure it gets better.
Just recently then.
Recently, very recently. But then you start to have the physical things start to decline, which is really unfortunate and a bad deal for us. What is exciting for me, especially related to longevity, is if we could preserve this wisdom or the vitality of people that have wisdom and help them share it and make that more accessible, that would help us all, right? The unfortunate thing is that a lot of the wisdom ends up with people whose vitality has declined so much that they can't share it, or the people don't see it or feel it too much. So for me, I'm excited about the possibility of some of these technologies we have at Upgrade Labs enabling people to share their wisdom while they're still vital, or to keep their vitality in a way that we can all share that wisdom.
Can you be successful as an entrepreneur and not be wise?
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Because it's the money factor, it's just...
Well, you can invent something, and be a successful entrepreneur without being wise at all. Absolutely. You don't have to be wise to be an entrepreneur.
Interesting, because as you said, there is a huge difference between being intelligent and being wise.
Those are different.
Totally
So
different.
you can be really, really smart. Bill Gates started Microsoft when he was like 18, right? He was incredibly intelligent, but he wasn't very wise about how to run a business. It took him years and years to understand how to run a big business.
So, are you familiar with the book "The Obstacle Is the Way" by Marcus Aurelius? This with written by Ryan Holiday.
Yes, I am. I love Ryan Holiday, and he's one of the current popularizers of the Stoic philosophy. And that title says everything that lines up with what I think about for entrepreneurs too. The obstacle is the way. It's about the resilience. It's the skill. It's realizing that when you go on a journey, there's going to be many problems along that way. And being an entrepreneur is a journey, and the path is really the obstacles that you are going to go through on the way. That is the path. It's not the final thing, like selling your company and getting the $10 million and then to do something else. The obstacles along the way is the way. And that's exactly what Ryan Holiday is saying and what Marcus Aurelius is saying in that passage.
So give me an example. Illustrate this philosophy for me, if possible.
It is just all of the like, for example, when we tried to open Upgrade Labs here in Santa Monica, there were all sorts of local regulations. The local inspectors came in and they looked at our machines and they said, this does not have an Underwriters Lab sticker on it. Therefore, you cannot have this in here, so you cannot open. And, we thought it was simple. You put machines in a building, you call the city, they give you a permit, and you go. No, there was this inspector person saying you need a special sticker. And then I go, well, where do I find a special sticker? Oh, I have to call this person and that person. And it was a diversion. It was a side path. It took me like 7 months to figure that out before I could then go back to the city with a special sticker on the machine. And then they let me open the doors. But when we thought we could open in like 2 months, it turned out to be a year and 3 months before we could open. And it turned out that all of the problems that we had going through were, in fact, the job of opening the company. We would not be open without having gone through those obstacles.
Right. Is there any person beyond your family circle that you admire, that is your source of inspiration, alive or not alive?
Alive or not alive? Not really any one person. As far as personally from a life philosophy, I would say I've spent a lot of time recently in the last 4 or 5 years reading the Stoics and Marcus Aurelius and those guys. It seems like a very practical approach to life, and I've been very inspired by them.
If you would be in front, or you would be able to sit across this table with Marcus Aurelius, what kind of question would you ask him?
Oh, that's a good question. What would I ask Marcus Aurelius? I don't know.
He would look at you and said, "Come on." You have me here, so what's the question?
What would I ask Marcus Aurelius? Probably how did with all of your busy responsibilities, because he was basically the emperor of the free world. He was like the most powerful man in the world at his time. And yet he found time to write for himself this book called Meditations, and to note, I mean, how do you get the time to do the personal development work when you're the king of the world? That's how I would ask him.
Right. Now, Tim Ferriss, correct? And he always asks a question that I love. It is, if you would have a billboard in the city, a huge billboard, which message would you write on it for the people to see? Beyond, beside your brand or your current business, of course.
I probably wouldn't have anything on my brand or my current business. I would say, wake up.
Wake up.
Wake up.
Awesome. If you'd have in front of you like 200 young entrepreneurs, what would be your best advice?
My best advice for young entrepreneurs is twofold. One, find a personal problem that you personally, passionately want to solve. Not an industry or business problem, but a personal problem. Find a solution for it. And secondly, change your goals to process-oriented goals, not outcome-oriented goals.
Martin, thank you so much for being with us, and we appreciate it in Como Lo Hizo. And I think that this conversation was very inspiring. I learned a lot, and my admirations to you.
Okay, thank you for having me.
To learn more about Upgrade Labs, go to upgradelabs.com. Thanks so much for listening to our show this week. If you want to find out more about our podcast, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Como Lo Hizo, or visit our website at ComoLoHizo.com. Please subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you listen to your podcast. If you want to reach out to comment or suggest a topic, please email hello@ComoLoHizo.com. This show was produced at the iHeart Studios in Los Angeles. I'd like to thank our producers, Fernando Alejandro Schiantarelli and Amelia Machiavello, our sound engineer, Martin Garcia, and Annie Siderovich, our general producer. Como Lo Hizo is a co-production from Premier Radio Network and Crece Grow Media. I am Fernando Schiantarelli. Thanks again for listening.